We are just weeks from the official reveal of next generation for the all-new Xbox platform. Microsoft, Xbox, and developers working on the new console hardware are speaking up about the transformative effects and horizons ahead for all new generation games. But according to developers, hands-on with the Xbox Series X and the PS5, the difference is surprising and a little bit shocking. This is Colteastwood. This is an absolutely massive and information-packed video I prepared. The lead up to the next generation reveal has been loaded with developer reports, industry sneak peeks, and deep dives from the gaming media. I'm very fortunate to be a part of much of that thanks to some great friends and contacts on both sides of the media and the industry. I want to pay a special thank you to Windows Central and most notably their correspondent Jez Corden for the information you will see here. His work is linked and sourced in the description. Windows Central plays a huge part in getting Microsoft and Xbox news out in front and in between official reveals from Xbox themselves. So follow Windows Central and Jez on Twitter and get the latest news. I have a lot of cool gameplay to show you and some illustrative content to get that message across. And if you appreciate content like this, like and subscribe to the channel. More info will be shared at the end of the video, so let's get into what makes the Xbox Series X so much more than we expected. The Xbox Series X is the next generation Xbox console, some 4 years in the making. It is truly a PC-like console for half the price, with some features most PC gamers haven't enjoyed and some things that console players have never before experienced. The number, specs, and features have been touted officially by Xbox and praised by Digital Foundry, but the short of the story is that the Xbox Series X is a powerful, impressive console meant to play thousands of games better than anything in its league. Windows Central's Jez Corden interviewed developers and hardware leads about the Xbox Series X, and they're all excited about what this console will do for their creative forces, targeting hardware from the PS5 all the way up to the most power-packed PCs available on the market. But how will this tech, power, and features translate into real next-generation games? Jez spoke to Joel Baker, technical director at Hinterland Games. His team has recently delivered the survival game The Long Dark, which focuses on immersion alone in the wilderness within a stylized game world accented by striking lighting and interaction with the elements. Joel said, "The most exciting thing for me is the addition of an SSD and the custom hardware surrounding it to help get data into memory faster. This will make it easier to work with larger data sets that don't easily fit into memory. The addition of hardware ray tracing is also super exciting, but it's how it can be used outside of graphics that will enable the biggest changes. We would be able to simulate physically accurate weather and wind by sending some rays into the world and then having the audio and physics change dynamically based on where the snow is accumulating or melting. These sorts of things are going to allow some really immersive experiences that weren't easily achievable before." End quote. But what about a developer with a long history of developing for other consoles and PC? Kevin Floyer-Lea of Rebellion Studios, the team behind the Visceral Zombie Army series and Sniper Elite series, this team has been able to get their games running at 60 FPS on current consoles. Kevin praised the Xbox Series X, saying, "The Xbox Series X is a genuine and significant boost in performance from the Xbox One. We saw how important both frame rate and resolution were with the previous generation, so it's exciting to be able to deliver 4K gaming at 60 frames per second on a console. The increased processing power means that we will not only be able to offer silky smooth gameplay, but we can actually take that gameplay up a level in complexity. Hardware accelerated ray tracing allows us to take players to environments that are more realistic and dynamic. But ray tracing hardware can do more than just rendering. For example, we can do incredible things with the acoustics to enhance realism, modeling realistic sound and occlusion for AI's hearing in real time, for example, is an incredibly useful feature for creating stealth games. The SSD storage speeds then lets us take those beautiful realistic environments and make them load in a flash, and we're talking about bigger environments than the ones we could create on Xbox One. Now we can support detailed motion capture on a much wider scale, like non-player characters simply doing their thing in the background. Instead of all enemy NPCs moving in an identical way, for example, the SSD storage speeds means we can offer many unique motion captured animations." End quote. One of the most talented studios in the industry and the top of the Xbox Game Studios ensemble is Coalition Studios with Gears of War. Mike Rayner of the Coalition said, "In the current generation, as the fidelity and size of our worlds increase, we have seen increasing runtime I/O demands, which have made it challenging to meet world streaming demands without detail loss. With the new direct storage APIs and new hardware decompression, we can further improve I/O performance and reduce CPU overhead, both of which are essential to achieve fast loading. As we look into the future, the Xbox Series X sampler feedback for streaming is a game changer for how we think about world streaming and visual level of detail. We will be exploring how we can use it in the future titles to both increase the texture detail in our games beyond what we can fit into memory." End quote. Mike proves that with an increased CPU, GPU, and storage solution, as well as bandwidth speeds thanks to Velocity architecture, their Gears world can be bigger and better without spending time reducing scope and managing loading and streaming problems. Gears 5 is already the biggest Gears world ever, and with the new advantages in the Xbox Series X, the next Gears game can be bigger, better, and more packed with enemies and interactions to elevate the experience in one of Xbox's most prolific franchises. Alexander Sabrin of Snowed In Studios, a major third-party support studio that has worked with Deus Ex, Shadow of Mordor, and dozens of other big AAA titles and ports, has spoken up about the Xbox Series X and the hardware-accelerated built-in ray tracing benefits of true dynamic lighting reflections in next-generation games. He says, "Ray tracing will allow for more realistic and flexible art direction. There is a lot of research around ray tracing that can be leveraged here that could lead to some very interesting concepts. Reflections, soft shadows, refraction, transparency, but what does that mean for graphics? It means that developers are creating new ideas on how to use this tech, pushing the boundaries in a different direction than it's been pushed before." Alexander Sabrin talks about managing CPU clocks and heat, something that game designers have to mind on a variable system like the PS5, but not on the Xbox Series X, which is set to its designed frequency and power draw. He says, "Processing power is always useful to allow developers to create more expansive worlds, more complex interactions, and to improve our ability to include more content into our games. It can also enable developers to spend less time optimizing and spend more time creating. Chip efficiency is also a big deal when it comes to the power wall." End quote. The last bit of information comes from the perspective of years of PlayStation development experience from Chris Grinnell, who has spent 15 years working for PlayStation and Guerrilla Games. He said, "The Xbox Series X is a beast compared to what Sony has put together. I think Sony has kind of rested on their laurels a bit." He also went on to suggest that Sony were possibly caught off guard with the Xbox Series X specs. He said, "If you look at the throughput and ray tracing capabilities of the Xbox Series X, then you start to understand why developers would be saying it's kind of staggering. So you've got the math, then you start looking at the real-time ray tracing capability, and that's where Sony has been caught off guard. As for ray tracing, there is only one next-generation console, the Xbox Series X, that will be able to do real-time ray tracing. If you look at Cerny's conversation, he kind of skipped over it and didn't really talk about real-time ray tracing. We've seen a very different narrative from Xbox. Looking at the hardware specs, it comes down to the count of CUs, hardware, and Sony hasn't come out and said that they will have all of the RDNA 2 features." End quote. Chris explained his concern with the PS5. He said, "At a developer-centric presentation, Cerny has not targeted what next-generation architecture uses. It's a serious issue that they haven't spoken on variable rate shading. If they're not pushing it except for ray trace audio, it doesn't scream that the PS5 is a ray tracing powerhouse." End quote. This means that we could possibly see major AAA multi-platform games on Xbox Series consoles running with higher performance and real-time ray tracing, while the PS5 version will resort to baked-in conventional lighting and reflections akin to current generation. The performance and visual delta between the Xbox and PS5 will be even further magnified if the PS5 cores use software-based ray tracing, which would lower visual clarity and frame rates in the same games. Simply put, 90% of games on Xbox Series X will have an advantage in not just pixel counts, as we've seen with the Pro and the Xbox One X, But next generation, the visual gap will include performance, immersive lighting and reflections, and much more. This is what we've come to expect from more expensive, more advanced, and better designed hardware on PC and now Xbox Series X. Sony's first-party exclusives will benefit from the super fast SSD and Kraken solution, but multiplats will be largely the same outside of loading speeds comparing the Xbox Series X and the PS5. The Xbox Series X has an incredible advantage of being not only the most powerful console, but the most powerful hardware set in its price range, rivaling top-tier PCs well into the first half of the new console generation. We have no doubt heard some developers speak up that the PS5 is easy to work with and preferred, but games are always targeting the market of mid-level PC and the highest hardware in the mass market. So as next generation comes out on consoles, the overwhelming majority of games will look and play better on the Xbox Series X, possibly with some major titles displaying realistic ray trace lighting and reflections on the Xbox, but not on the PS5. Xbox had to overcome a power disadvantage with the Xbox One early on, and now they are fixing an exclusive games deficit with 15 teams within Xbox Game Studios working on fantasy RPGs, sci-fi, adventure games, racers, shooters from a diverse group of teams across the world. Next generation is heating up to be one of the best combinations of more games, more power to push visuals, and worlds bigger and better than ever. And all of this is unlocked thanks to the power and tech inside the next Xbox console, and the unveiling for Xbox is coming very soon. This is Colteastwood. Thank you so much for watching, and if you made it this far, thank you. If you did, write in the comments, astronaut with one arm. Bonus for anyone that gets that reference, you'll be my new best friend. Please don't use Google. I wanted to take this moment to thank a good, close friend of mine, Dealer Gaming. He messaged me 3 years ago when I was at 1,000 subscribers, and he's helped me with my content. Now, I'm nearing 100,000 subs this year if people still watch my videos. His channel is incredible, very tech-oriented, but he explains everything perfectly. He has top quality visuals. He's nearing 70,000 subs. Go make that happen. Also, for almost 3 years, he's been running RDX Podcast. It gets some 100,000, 200,000 plus views a month. He refused to brag, so I'm gonna brag. It's one of the biggest Xbox and maybe console-related podcasts around. We have guests from developers to industry personalities like Alana Pierce on the show. We have a diverse group of Xbox, PC, and PlayStation fans on the panel. It airs every Tuesday night at 5 p.m. Pacific time on Dealer's channel. The link is in the description. If you enjoyed this video and the presentation, let me know by liking and subscribing to the channel. Those who have been here each and every week for a while and want to support the content by joining the channel or the Patreon, that will help pay for the software and the hardware I use to deliver 4K 60 quality videos. For those that support just by watching and commenting, that means so much to me as well. You can share the video on social media and with friends. We're all staying home, right? So we're gamers. We relish in this opportunity to stay home and play as many games as we can, staying connected with our friends over the internet to keep this planet safe until it recovers. I want to thank the friends that I talk to daily on Twitter and Xbox chat. You know who you are. I can't name everybody. You are amazing and have made this difficult time a place of laughs and happiness. This video is too long. I'll let you go. Let me know in the comments what day you expect the big Xbox reveal in May, and don't forget to, as usual, be nice.